Good evening, children of the night, guys and gals, and ghosts and ghouls. This is Adrian from Insomnia Records, and I'm here to talk to you about some selections I pulled to talk about Halloween and Halloween-inspired records and horror movie soundtracks. I have a nice little stack in front of me here, so let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it. First off, in no particular order, we have the soundtrack to Suspiria by Goblin, a prog rock band from Italy who basically made an entire career out of just horror movie soundtracks. So instead of like going on tour or making albums and doing like the rock band thing, these guys just stayed in that lane and really made the most out of composing horror movie soundtracks, like really great ones too. Like this is definitely one of their better ones. Also check out Deep Red by Dario Argento. Not just the soundtrack, but the movie itself. This movie, however, really holds a special place in my heart. The color palette on this is outstanding. The movie itself is just like one of those great pioneering like giallo movies that was very highly influential. I think more highly influential than a lot of the other giallos that came out. I don't know why. Maybe there's something about this one. I think it has a lot to do with how artfully it was done. Visually, it's a really cool movie, and definitely worth seeing. I don't want to spend too much time talking about these records because some of these I know that I'm going to go off on tangents. But I've said enough about this one. You should check it. If you haven't seen Suspiria, the original one, see it. Definitely look out for the soundtrack by Goblin or any soundtrack by Goblin. It's really, really cool. Now, I'm not a fan of remakes, and unfortunately, they remade Suspiria, and that was a big mistake. They shouldn't have remade that movie. There's no remaking Suspiria, okay? So they got Tom York to do the soundtrack, and I'm not a huge fan of Tom York either. You know, whatever. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm sure, that's a bold statement. However, his compositions and his vocals on here really does work. The soundtrack is better than the movie in this case. If I were you, I wouldn't even watch the movie and I would just listen to the soundtrack. It's very cool, has some really great compositions in it. It sets a tone. It's very foreboding. It's very eerie, ethereal. It's very cool. This is one of those rare occurrences where I'm like, ditch the movie, check out the soundtrack. Now, next up, we have pretty much one of the most iconic, and I'm going to say iconic a lot probably, so bear with me. I'm just doing this off the cuff. I'm not scripted or anything. I'm just kind of stream of consciousness. But you can't deny that the original Halloween film was a groundbreaking and iconic film, especially in the slasher genre, the horror genre. And the cool thing about the Halloween movie and a lot of the movies under this franchise, but this is the one that started it all, okay? The really cool thing about this, other than the movie itself, is the score. The score is very memorable, and it's only a few notes, and it was composed by the director, John Carpenter, who had a very limited knowledge of music to begin with, and he just kind of went for it. He got on the synth, and he's like, all right, let's just make something up. And smoked a lot of weed, and just like, here we go. And he came up with, what we know is the classic Halloween theme, and all the variations on that theme. And they are all contained here. In this 1978, I'm pretty sure this is the original 1978 pressing or 1979 pressing of this Halloween album. Had it for a very long time. Very proud to have it in my collection. And there's really not much more I need to say about this. If you don't know this, like I don't know what's going on, but you need to get on this. Okay, the original Halloween soundtrack, very cool. Now, this one also had not like necessarily remakes. I mean, there were reboots, and this is a really long-running franchise, and we had like the Rob Zombie detour of these movies, which I'm not going to go into all that. And then there was kind of like a lull, and then they made 3 more, like the 3 final ones, or for now anyway. You never know; they might come back with like Michael Myers is like 150 years old, terrorizing some like geriatric facility. Anyway, of the 3 last movies that they made, I think that this one is the best of the 3, which is Halloween Kills. Okay, this soundtrack is also really, really cool. It matches pretty much it sonically matches the brutality of the movie, because this particular movie is the most brutal of the three. It has the best kills. It's really graphic. It's just a good time. It's not overly done. It's just a really good time. The other two pale by comparison. This is the one to see of the last three. Okay? Now, John Carpenter also did the score of this, and he has not lost his touch. He still can bang out these killer soundtracks, and he updates the variations on the themes that he composed, 40 years ago. But very minimally. Like, he didn't add a lot. You didn't really need to add a lot to that. It was already perfect. But the stuff that he did add was really tastefully done. So this soundtrack is worth seeking out. The variations on what was already in the original are different enough. There is different textures on this that are worth checking out. Very cool soundtrack in its own right. Good movie in its own right. I'll definitely take some points off of the Anthony Michael Hall thing. If you see it, you'll know what I mean. Okay, so next we have quite possibly one of the greatest movies that could double as an ad for birth control. And I am talking about The Omen. Now, the soundtrack to this is also super ominous, super chilling, eerie, with, just the very satanic sounding classical pieces with like the choir singing, and it's just like this building tension and building excitement and just building like gloom and doom, and it's all on here, and really cool. It's one of those things that, like, you could just listen to it on its own. It's not something you're going to sit out, kick back on a Sunday afternoon while you're cleaning your apartment, unless you're like some kind of serial killer. But for Halloween purposes, like if you're having some kind of like get-togethers, like some kind of spooky get-together or like a Halloween party, this is really cool. You should definitely have this on your playlist. The Omen. Music by Jerry Goldsmith. Now we're getting into some rarities in my collection, okay? This one is really hard to find. I don't think I've ever seen this more than once or twice. And when the first time I saw it, I had to grab it. I'm not going to tell you how much I paid for it, because I paid a pretty penny for this one. And I am talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. The original Nightmare on Elm Street soundtrack. This is the original pressing of that. And the music is composed by Charles Bernstein. Now, the cool thing about this soundtrack is it's very shrill. It's very high-pitched synths and drum machines, and kind of like very primitive but incredibly effective. The same thing that made the very first Nightmare on Elm Street movie very effective, because it was low budget, but the low budget aspect of it made it even more chilling, made it even more scary. Something about it made it more raw. Some intangible thing that made that first Nightmare on Elm Street really fantastic, and I think it sets it apart from the other ones. Now, the other ones are great too in their own right, and they have their own things about them, but the very first one, I really dig the low budget aspect of it and what they did with it, and the soundtrack really enhances that. It's one of those things where David Lynch said, and he's very right about that, like, the music in the movie, the audio of the movie is 50% of the movie, and he's right. And some of these soundtracks really do ring true to that. They really do. Like, it's proof positive that's very the audio of the movie, the sonic landscape of a movie is vital. This, in terms of a horror movie soundtrack, very effective. Play this at any Halloween get together, and people will be looking over their shoulders and like really tripping out. It does get under your skin. Okay, check it out. Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, let's do a little detour. Let's just calm things down, because I've been getting into some like really heavy horror territory all at once here. So let's chill out with a different vibe, make it a little bit more fun. And now, let's take a moment to be at home with the Munsters. Now, this is not the original pressing of this. This is a Record Store Day repress of this that came out a few years ago, and I just had to pick it up. What a fun record this is, especially if you love the Munsters, and who doesn't love the Munsters, right? So this one is like basically like a point of view type of thing as it plays. Like, it's almost like you are entering the Munsters' house, and you're being introduced to each one of them one by one with all these cool, like, their sound effects and like their signature catchphrases or laughs or whatever. And they sing, like, each one of them kind of sings a song, which is really corny, but for the purpose of the record, I could see why they're doing that. And it's really not to be taken very seriously at all. Like I said, it's a really fun record. like real, like, monster mashy, I guess you could say. And yeah, just a really fun record to have at your next Halloween shindig. Your next little Monster Mash stuff. Put this on and watch people get all stoked. Another fun one, but not in the same way as the Monsters, because the Monsters was like very interactive. Like, they made the record with the purpose of you interacting with it, or being a participant in it in a way. So, but this one is one of those where they use basically the dialogue of the movie, and it's like a walkthrough of the movie as a soundtrack. Okay, and it's basically just dialogues kind of walking you through the story. And depending on the movie, depending on how it's done, you could have varying results. This one, however, I think is really cool because it had so much memorable dialogue in it, and they capture it all on here. And I'm talking about the Young Frankenstein soundtrack, the Mel Brooks classic. So, and there's so many, especially in Mel Brooks movies, but this one, chock full of really funny references, and they're all here. And it's really fun. It's really great. I don't really need to say much more about this one. You've seen Young Frankenstein. If you've seen Young Frankenstein and you love Young Frankenstein, this would be cool. This is a kind of like one of those that you'll just kind of kick back and listen to just for kicks. You know what I mean? Just like, oh, I remember that. Like, that's funny. It's not for all the time, but when you're in the mood for it, this one just hits different. This is really great. Now, moving into another type of record that I really think is very interesting is like kind of spoken word storytelling records. Okay, now this one I've only seen once, and it's again, you see it once and like, oh, I may never see this one again, so I'm going to pick it up. And it was, if you ever see it, you could probably pick it up for a few bucks. It's not like it's some grail. It's going to cost you a lot of money, but it is a cool record if you're into that sort of thing. So this is Basil Rathbone. For those of you in my audience that are at least 150 years old, Basil Rathbone was best known for playing Sherlock Holmes, especially in like, well, not only radio series, but I think in film as well. I'm not sure. But Basil Rathbone reads Edgar Allan Poe, and he does it really well. And there's a lot of sound effects on it. It plays out like a radio radio program, and it's very cool. It's something to just kick back and listen to. And it's it's a hauntingly good time, so worth checking out. There's Basil Rathbone right there, just thinking like, what the hell happened to my career? Anyway, next we have, now this is a banger. I didn't even know about this record. This is the cool thing about collecting records, or if you're into physical media and you collect physical media, and you think like, oh, you think you've seen it all, you think you know everything there is to know. There's nothing new under the sun. And you're very cynical and like kind of know-it-all-ish, like me. Then, when this, gets reissued and you didn't even realize that it was issued in the first place, it kind of blows your mind. And I'm talking about Vincent Price, Witchcraft and Magic, An Adventure in Demonology. Okay, now this was just recently reissued on double LP. And this like kind of orange swirl pumpkin-y type of color, really fun. And it also comes with an 8-page booklet, a really big booklet, full of, it's basically a faithful reproduction of the original pressing of this record. And basically what Vincent Price does is he talks about witchcraft through the ages. And it's not just like storytelling. This guy is pretty much giving you historical accounts of things that happen, like witches, like burning witches at the stake and torture, really crazy stuff. Very graphic, actually. I was surprised how graphic some of this stuff was, and just punctuated amazingly by the sepulchral tone, the ominous, otherworldly, spooky voice of Vincent Price. This guy could recite anything and make it sound scary. Okay? I cannot recommend this record to you enough if you like Vincent Price. This is the gem that you need to have in your collection of Vincent Price stuff, okay? Get this record. I don't know who put it out. I think it's Real Gone Music. And it's reissued from, the original Capitol recordings, okay? Now, I also have this, which is like a double cassette version of him telling stories also that I've had for a while, called The Price of Fear. which is him reading 4 dramatizations of different, spooky stories. Also, well worth your time, well worth your money if you can seek this one out. Because, again, Vincent Price, he can recite anything and make it sound awesome. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so now we are venturing into possibly my favorite soundtrack, at least in the horror genre. I think it's safe to say my favorite of all time. This one is the soundtrack to The Shining. And there's so much to say about The Shining. I could make a series of videos about The Shining and the music of The Shining and how masterfully done this is. The music of Bela Bartok, Krzysztof Penderecki, and Wendy Carlos. And also a few selections of 1920s ballroom music for eerie, spooky effect. Now, the cool thing about the Krzysztof Penderecki and the Bela Bartok selections for this are like they were not composed for The Shining, okay? They were existing recordings by these avant-garde classical composers. However, the crazy thing about this, and this movie is like, steeped in enigma and so much symbolism, and this movie can be talked about and endlessly for decades, and it has been. And people say they've made documentaries about it. There's endless talk about what this movie is really about and what this means and what that means. And there's a chair in this scene, and then the next frame it's gone. And what does that mean? And the TV that they're watching is not plugged in. And you could go down so many rabbit holes with this movie. This is a highly enigmatic, incredible piece of art. So, as I was saying before, the Krzysztof Penderecki and the Bela Bartok selections for this movie were not like the Wendy Carlos theme that was composed for the film. Okay? What they did was the final cut of the film was already established. They already filmed the movie. So what they did was the music editor Gordon Stainforth, I think, or Daneforth. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the name, but he was the music editor, and he went about placing the movie along with the image. And none of the music was cut or edited to fit the image. The spooky thing about it was it fit the image so perfectly. It was almost like it was tailor-made for it. Down to like every little note was like it went along synchronization-wise. It went along with the movements of the actors, or the moves, or their facial expressions, or just any of the dialogue that they said. It really punctuated it too perfectly. It was like it was composed for that, and that's just one of so many things that have to do with The Shining that are just incredibly interesting and spooky and fascinating. And I could talk about this movie and this soundtrack for days. I might have to make a separate video just for that, but I had to mention this and I had to include it because I'm so proud of this particular original pressing of the soundtrack, which has the hype sticker affixed to the actual jacket. It wasn't on the shrink wrap. It's affixed to the actual jacket, and it's in French. However, when I looked it up, it's a UK pressing. So again, another mysterious aspect of this. But hey, again, The Shining. Okay, so going from that into another movie that's another one of my all-time favorites, and I could talk about this one for days as well. But the soundtrack to this is not as fascinating and steeped in mystery and just synchronicities as The Shining. However, it does have a ton of atmosphere. And I'm talking about the soundtrack to Eraserhead, the David Lynch film. And so, also a original pressing. This one, if you've ever seen Eraserhead, it's very hard to describe, but it's basically like someone was able to film like somebody's fever dream about parenthood and make a motion picture out of it. So basically, Henry Spencer is the character that plays Eraserhead. And so as you're listening to the the record, it's basically walking you through the dialogues and the sound design of the film. So it's not like the Young Frankenstein soundtrack where it's only dialogues, it's only the funny dialogues and the funny aspects of the movie all compiled for your entertainment. This is almost not even for your entertainment. This is like a disturbing thing that's almost like, in a way, trying to launch you headfirst into the movie where you're playing Henry Spencer and you're just walking through the dystopian wasteland of his neighborhood as he reaches his crazy apartment, and you just hear like almost like nothing, or like a faint static, or you hear like faint, like weird, like big bandish, like ballroom music played on like a little organ, like in the background, like way off in the distance. And or then, you know, like, okay, now I hear like an elevator, like it's almost like you're playing Henry Spencer, but it's basically just a reproduction of, they just recorded the sound from the actual film, but, and some of the dialogues as well, right? So it walks you through the entire film, and not the entire film, but like, you know, they cut it up, they cut out a lot of it, but they give you the important bits. And of course it includes the, you know, In Heaven Everything is Fine, from the Lady in the Radiator. This one is not for everyone, but if you love Eraserhead and you love avant-garde soundtracks and you love just a different type of listening experience, then this is for you. Now, here's another rarity from my collection that I've only seen once, and I don't think I'll ever see it again. And I had to get it, and it didn't, I don't remember if it was expensive. It might have been. It might. Who cares? When you see stuff like this, you don't care. You just, you know, if you have the money, you're going to buy it. And this is basically a compilation. It's called Horror and Science Fiction. It's a European pressing. It says so right there. And it's basically a compilation from the movies Patrick, Maniac, The Howling, The Day After Halloween, Escape from New York, Mad Max, Phantasm, and The Day Time Ended. Fantastic selections. Really, really cool soundtrack. I mean, really, really cool compilation. If you ever see this out anywhere, I mean, I don't even have to tell you. You see this cover somewhere, you're buying it. So I can't. This kind of sells itself, dude. This is really like so much bang for your buck. Very, very cool. Put this on at the next Halloween party. Watch people say, "What the hell's that? Where'd you get that? I need that. Can I borrow that?" No. So moving on. I have a few more. I have 3 more. So thanks for hanging in there. If you're still watching, thanks for hanging in there. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more content like this coming up. But let me not sidetrack too much. Let me get back into this. Now, I got this one a few years ago. My girlfriend went on a trip to, I think, Georgia or something, and then she came back and she got me this as a gift, and I was so touched that I'm like, oh, you got me a record. I'm probably going to hate it because you don't really know my musical taste. We just started talking. We didn't know each other that well. But it was incredibly sweet. It was like, oh, okay. And then she blows my mind with this, the Dead and Buried soundtrack, which I thought, like, I should probably marry her now because this is so on the money. This is such a great soundtrack, such a fantastic soundtrack, and not because my girlfriend got it for me, although it does have a high sentimental value for me. This soundtrack is fantastic. I didn't even know about this movie. And it was composed by Joseph Renzetti, who also did the soundtracks to Child's Play and Frankenhooker. The score to this says to the 1981 cult classic film, available for the first time on any format. And this is a limited edition colored vinyl, and it's a very beautiful aqua blue colored vinyl. I'm not going to pull it out; it'd be too much trouble. But if you see this, or if you could find this on the internet somewhere, man, you need to get this. This is a beautiful, beautiful soundtrack. It has horror elements, but it also has like beautiful musical passages as well. This is a very, very, very cool record, and I'm so happy that I got this, especially since I didn't even know about it. Amazing, right? I love that. So I have 2 more. Okay, now these are more just kind of like, this one's a classic one. You'll probably recognize right off the bat if you're into that sort of thing. And it is the Pickwick Records Blood-Curdling Sounds to Make You Shiver. And it's basically just that, just haunted house sounds. You cannot ask for a better record to have on while trick-or-treaters are coming at your door and you're dressed up like some kind of monster. And you're going to freak these little kids out with sounds of rattling chains and like people being tortured. And it even says so right here, like the things. A Night in a Haunted House, which is the entirety of side 1, which is perfect, right? Then you have A Witch Laugh. You have Count Dracula and His Victim. Screams and Groans. And then you have Moans and Groans. So you have 2 different tracks of that. You have Cats and Dogs. A Banging Shutter. A Phantom Piano. Creaky Door. breaking windows, thunder, wind, Frankenstein's monster breaks loose, and a hooting owl. You need a hooting owl. And it has all that. And the back cover has this like really awesome skull. And the label of the record has a really awesome skull. Holy crap. And you can get this for a few bucks. Perfect. You need this. You got to get this. Why don't you have this? Now, the very last one I'll be talking about is very fun. And I got this a long time ago when I lived in New York. I remember I saw it and I just couldn't pass it up. I thought this was like super cool. All right. And I'm talking about Halloween starring Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Okay. Now this is a straight up kids record. Okay. And I've seen a lot of the Fat Albert episodes. I don't remember seeing this one, but something tells me that it's just a recording of a Fat Albert Halloween themed episode where one of the kids outside of the gang of the Cosby Kids is kind of like a little troublemaker, and he thinks it's cool to go ahead and scare the bejesus out of old folks. Okay, and that's kind of the premise of this. I'm not going to give the rest of it away. I'm not into really the whole spoiler thing. But this is well worth your time too, just as a novelty. And how cool is that, man? Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, Halloween escapades. Okay? And that will do it. That'll do it for this episode of Insomnia Records and Halloween Ghastly Treasures and Vinyl Delicacies. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for hanging in there. I will have a lot more reviews of records and films and books and other stuff that I'm into. And this is the first in a series. So feel free to subscribe so you can check out the rest of the stuff. And my crazy ramblings off the cuff, and well, whatever, man, and my like non-existent editing skills, and this is it. This is what you got. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, so I'm just gonna talk, and hopefully that's it. That's good enough. All right. Thank you so much, and have a happy Halloween, and I'll catch you later.